All right. So first, welcome everyone to the Parent Webinar Series. This is co-hosted by the Alliance of Private Special Education Schools of North Jersey and the New Jersey Association of Special Education Partner Schools, NJASEBS. My name is Stephanie Summers, and I am the External Affairs Director for NJASEBS. First, I want to share with you a little bit about the co-hosting organizations, the Alliance and NJASEBS. The Alliance is an organization of more than 30 state-approved private special education schools in northern and central New Jersey, dedicated to helping parents and educators better understand and access appropriate program options in special education. Their goal is to see that parents, school administrators, teachers, and child advocates are well informed about the special education needs of and range of program options available for children, teens, and young adults with disabilities, particularly those with more complex needs. NJASEBS, formerly known as ASA, is a nonprofit organization representing New Jersey's private special education schools that provide highly specialized services to more than 10,000 infants, children, and young adults with disabilities. While its primary focus is on the needs of students, NJASEBS also works to foster partnerships between its members, local school districts, and local communities. These collaborations not only enhance the quality of education programs, but they also ensure that students with disabilities are served in the least restrictive setting and have the greatest chance of returning students to public school settings, all while providing information and referrals to anyone seeking appropriate placement of individuals with disabilities. NJASEPS also advocates directly for individuals with disabilities and their families while promoting programs and policies that protect and enhance their well-being, especially those that impact or interface with their education. A few housekeeping things before we get started today. Before I introduce the presenter tonight, Jennifer Boyle, please stay on mute if you can. Any questions that you have, if you could just enter them into the chat box, we will review all of the questions at the end and then we will ask the presenter. All presentations will be recorded and then posted on our parents page for NJASEPS and then on the Alliance's page as well. We'll put this information in a follow-up email to all the attendees tonight. And then we will also send out the slides from Jennifer and an additional PDF. Next, I'm going to introduce our presenter, Jennifer Boyle, mom, advocate, and founder of Good Life Consulting. Jennifer advocates for person-centered supports and legislative advances, helping people with disabilities live fulfilling lives of their own choosing. She is the proud mom of Sean and Sam, two wonderful young men who also have disabilities. Jennifer has completed more than 750 training hours related to advocacy and transition to adult life. She has consulted to the CTC Academy's Beyond Graduation Project since 2023, assisting families in learning about and preparing for adult life. She served as CPAG co-president for the West Essex Regional School District from 2021 to 2025, supporting the families of students with IEPs and 504 plans. She currently serves on committees at the ARC of New Jersey, the Supportive Housing Association of New Jersey, and the State Action Team for charting the life course. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer Boyle.
Stephanie, thank you so much. That was it's so nice to be here. I'm so happy to be among parents. I will tell you, I have a lot of professional experience working in this area, but my most important experience is being a mom to two young, well, now not young, two grown-up men who have disabilities. And tonight, I'm looking forward to sharing with you a roadmap to adult life. And since I know some of you in the audience tonight, I know that some of you have children who are still in school, and I know that some of you have young adults who have graduated from school. And so we have a lot of different perspectives. I would welcome questions and would be happy to follow up with anyone after the Zoom also if you have follow-up questions. But tonight's topic is making a runway so that we don't have a cliff when we transition to adult life with our young adults. And I really feel that with preparation and Also collaborating with other parents, that we can be prepared and can do a great job for and with our kids so that their adult life is successful. So let's go to our first slide. What we're going to be doing tonight, first of all, thank you for joining this evening. I want to spend some time tonight talking about my family, talking about adult life, and the fact that it's a new world. It's very different from the world of special education when someone is school age. And then we're going to talk about the steps that you need to do to be prepared for adult life. And I'll share some final thoughts and a thank you at the end. So let's go to our next slide. This is a picture of my family taken at the Bronx Zoo, actually for my son Sean's birthday. Sean is the young man in the wheelchair looking very excited in the front. This was his 22nd birthday. We went to the Bronx Zoo and we went to the giraffe encounter. I wanted to mention this because I'll be talking about that and other kinds of programs in the community that are not special for people with disabilities. They are adapted because we can all take advantage of programs and supports that are paid for by a budget or that are especially for people with disabilities. And there are many opportunities in the community for things that are not special in that way, that everyone can participate in. But I have been married for 24 years. Our family lives in North Caldwell. My son Sean is 22 years old, and my son Sam, who's standing next to my husband, is 19. We have a dog named Chloe, who I hope we will not hear from this evening, but we will see. Um, One of the things that is important about our family is that both my husband and I work from home. And we made this change in our life to make our lives work better. And we're incredibly fortunate to be able to work from home. But I wanted to mention that for any of us who have a person with a disability who we're caring for, sometimes you can make changes in your own life that will make your whole family's life run better. So I work from home as an advocate and a transition coordinator consultant. And my first and most important job is being a mom. And we'll go to the next slide. I want to share just a little bit more about both of my children. My son, Sean, is a sensitive and caring young man. He absolutely loves his family. He is filled with joy when he listens to music. He loves Disney movies. He loves being in nature. And he was a Boy Scout for 10 years in our town and really enjoys giving back to his community. I mentioned scouting because Boy Scouting is a community-based activity, and it is an activity that can be made inclusive, and it benefits a person with a disability to be included, and it benefits the other scouts and participants for a person with a disability to be included. It goes both ways. Sean was a beautiful full-term baby. I think one of the most beautiful babies ever. I maybe slightly um, I don't know, biased, but he started having some difficulties as soon as he was born, including feeding issues and low muscle tone. And very soon after that, he was diagnosed with spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy in the profound range, which means that he has very limited use of his body. And later he was diagnosed with reflux and also developed a seizure disorder. And I'll just mention right now, this could not have been a bigger surprise to us. And I don't know if that's true for many of you on the Zoom tonight, but I had no idea that my son was going to be born with very significant disabilities. And it's very world changing and shocking and in every way a life changer. And that's probably true for many of you on the call tonight too. And we started right away trying to help Sean to do everything that he could. The first picture is us in the NICU together. We really committed to do the best that we could for Sean and to provide him with every opportunity to be in the community. The bottom picture is Sean riding his bike. I mention this because Sean loves exercising. And I have a little bonus slide at the end that talks about some resources that you can use to purchase things like this, because although this equipment is very useful and very helpful, it's also very expensive and oftentimes not covered by insurance. So there's some information on the end to utilize for yourselves. Sean has many abilities and he also has many challenges. He did when he was born and throughout his life and still now as an adult. And I'll go to the next slide to talk about my son, Sam. Sam is 19 years old. He is a high energy and funny and earnest young man. He loves Pump It Up, which is a video game if you're not familiar with it. He loves karaoke. He loves making people laugh. He's an Eagle Scout, which we're all very proud of. And he's a freshman at Ramapo College. Sam was a very hard to settle baby. I could tell that something was not quite typical about him, mostly because of my older son, Sean. And I started asking therapists, like, do you think, is there something going on with Sam? Should I get him evaluated? And I heard back many times, he's a boy, he's high energy, they're a little slower to talk and things like that. But as it turned out, he was diagnosed with PDD-NOS, which is an old diagnosis. Some of you may know. It means pervasive developmental delay, not otherwise specified. And now we call that autism. And Sam has level 1 autism. So both of my young men have strengths and gifts and also challenges. Sam did very, very well through school with early intervention. He went to an inclusive preschool. He had all the supports that he needed in our local school district and is now in college using a program called the Enhanced Program, which provides extra supports for people with autism. So I want to mention college is definitely better supported for people with disabilities now. So there's a lot to look forward to and be optimistic about. And we'll go on to the next slide. Just to switch gears, something that's really important to know is that when you graduate from school, things change a lot. And there's some important ways that they change. Children under 21 who have disabilities are supported by the Department of Education, and their education is an entitlement. And what an entitlement means is that there are legally binding structures to support and enforce what they need, like IEPs, for example. And adults over the age of 21 are supported by the Division of Developmental Disabilities. And instead of being entitled to services, they are eligible for services. And these two words mean very different things. Eligibility means that someone applies for and is approved eligible for services, but those services are not guaranteed. You have to find them. You have to seek them out. And so planning is recommended and beneficial for families with children under the age of 21 and is essential for planning for adult life. And I have these pictures here, kind of an analogy. Before you're 21, you can think about your life, your education being like the school bus. Your child gets on the school bus. You can get on the school bus, but you don't have to really. You can be involved or not be involved. It's better if you're involved, but the bus is going to keep going. And there are teachers, IEPs, therapists, and people in charge of that. When you're an adult, it's like a tour bus. And guess who's driving that bus? You are. You're driving it. And you need to have a map. You need to know where you're going. You need to know what's important to your child. You still have supports, but you're so much more in charge. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight is what are the steps of getting ready for adult life? So we'll go on to the next slide. So a lot of people have said to me, I wish there was just like a book that would tell you all the steps that you need to follow to get ready for adult life, to be prepared. And there's not one, but there are some steps. And so I want to go over each of them tonight in an overview fashion because there are 9 steps and there are many nuances to know about those. But the first step really is to work with your young adult to help identify their hopes, their dreams, their goals, and their support needs, and also what doesn't work for them. And I would add, this step is important for my son, Sean, who has very substantial support needs. Also for my son, Sam, who has some support needs, but not as much clearly as Sean does. And also for myself and for my husband and for you too. It is so important as a human being to identify your hopes, your dreams, your goals, and what you need to be successful. So this is a universal tool. And I hope that you will use these tools for yourself. I'm sending actually a separate PDF with what's called a support star, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, that you can use for yourself also to identify your own strengths and what your goals are. So I would start with that now. The time frame for that is now. It's a lifelong process. The second step is to use the IEP process if you're still in school to develop transition goals and plans. And in New Jersey, transition starts at the age of 14 for every student. And we can start to identify what kinds of things might this young person be doing when they're an adult. What kind of thing would they like to work? Would they like to be part of a day program? Would they like to have a combination of those things? Would they like to continue their education? There are a lot of options. And you can also utilize, moving on to step 3, something called the Division of Vocational Rehabilitative Services, mouthful, DVRS, which we'll talk about, to use something called pre-ETS. It's pre-employment training services. This is something that's available to everyone who has a disability, an IEP, a 504, and can help prepare someone to work, to have interview skills, job skills, the things that they need to be successful. And that is from ages 14 to 21. My younger son, Sam, used the pre-ETS program at his school to get an internship at REI, which really fit his interest because he's a Boy Scout. And so he enjoyed it. He was paid $15 an hour for this job, and he got some great job experience with a job coach alongside him. So I wanted to mention that these can be really valuable experiences for a young person, and also determining what they want to do next. The next step that's important, and some of these steps are concurrent, which I mentioned here on the side. Some of the steps can happen at the same time. Others have to be in a certain sequence. And you don't have to do all of this at once. As a matter of fact, I would not recommend doing all of this at once. Focus on 1 or 2 steps at a time, and we can talk about which ones are the most important, the most critical a little bit later, so that you don't overwhelm yourself. There's a lot to learn in the world of adult services. On this page alone, there are 6 or 7 acronyms, which you may not have seen before. And it's really important to give yourself time to learn. So I think about it kind of like a Christmas tree. So you get your tree home, you put it up, and then maybe you'll put the lights on next, or the tinsel, and then the bulbs. You don't do all of it at one time. You do one step at a time, and the steps build on each other. And learning about adult services and the world of adult life is the same way. You build on what you know, expose yourself to information over time, more and more will make sense. And then all of a sudden you've got your completed tree or your completed plan. So be patient with yourself and give yourself time. The next step, we talked about applying for guardianship, also applying for SSI. These are really important steps. SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income. It is a source of income for people who do not have work experience. If somebody has work experience, they would apply for Social Security Disability, which is a different program. So those are our first 5 steps. We have a couple more on the next page, and then we're going to go into each one and talk about an overview of each of them. And I hope that by the end of the overview that things make more sense as a process. You can think of this as a game. I have a game board up here. The first step, the green arrow there, is for anyone is to work with your young adult to identify their hopes and what their goals are, because that will determine the path you take for the rest of your adult planning. And we can go to the next slide. The next step is applying for DDD services. DDD stands for the Division of Developmental Disabilities. DDD provides services and supports through a budget for individuals who have a disability. You can apply as early as age 18, but you begin using DDD at age 21. So some people apply early so that they have that behind them, they have a tier, and then they will begin using their services when their young adult turns 21. The next step, and this is kind of a whole separate thing, is transitioning to adult medical providers. So the pediatric specialists that we all see for so long, eventually our children will age out of those specialists and need to find adult providers. So I have some tips about how to do that. That is not something you have to do all at once, but it is something to start thinking about. Step 8, select a support coordinator. We're going to talk about support coordination and what that is in a few minutes. And support coordinators, you choose one upon being approved by DDD. That's one of your first steps. And then the last step, and it's an ongoing step and kind of never ending, you build your young adults plan based on their goals and priorities, and you update and change as you need to, and you will. Something that I realized early on in my own planning is that I used to think about this. I have to make decisions, and then it has to be for the rest of Sean's life. I have to pick, a day program and he's going to stay there. I have to choose a job training program and he has to stay there. And that's actually not true. You can change direction when you want to and when you need to. And you will. You just the same way as all of us as adults change direction. We have chapters in our lives and we move on to the next thing. Your children will do that too. So if you do something and it's not working out, you can change it. And I would encourage you to. It's a process of trial and error and improvement. So let's go on to the next slide and I'll start going through the steps. So the first step is to help your young adult identify their strengths, their goals, and their needs. And to do this, you can notice what makes your young adult happy and engaged and what upsets them or what causes them to tune out. And I will mention that my son Sean uses a communication device and does not speak in traditional ways, but I can still observe him and watch to see what makes him happy, what engages him, what bores him, what makes him upset. That information is so important as your child graduates from school and becomes a young adult. And you want to be specific and descriptive because the details matter. And I'm just mentioning here a cup of coffee as an example. If I were to say to someone, can you make me a cup of coffee? Because I like coffee. They might bring a coffee that looks like this, which looks like a black coffee, which I would be very unhappy about. I love a latte. Some people like sugar in their coffee, but that matters. And so knowing what specifically makes your young adult feel happy, the details of it will help everyone else who's supporting them to do the best job they can. So go beyond just the most basic and be descriptive and specific the best that you can. You can also talk with teachers, therapists, and friends to get their perspectives. They will have a different perspective and experience of your young adult than you do. For example, my son Sean has a direct support for professional who works with him named John, who he knows very well. And my son acts like a different person with John because he's another kind of young guy and they listen to music together. They go to the mall together. And so I learn a lot from talking to John about my own son because he's different in different contexts, just as we all are. And the last tool that you can use, the last thing on the slide here, is charting the life course tool. So these are some tools that you can use to really learn more and dig into what's important to your son or your daughter. So the next slide is called a Good Life Board. And I'm going to share this one. This is my son Sean's Good Life Board. And Sean chose his favorite pictures to reflect what's important to him and what makes his life good, what is important for him to have a good life. How I did this with him is I printed pictures of things that I know he enjoyed and I held them up so that he could tell me which ones were the most important to him. And he was very clear about these things. And also he learned about himself in the process. So we don't have to go over all the details of Sean's board, but I will tell you that exercising and being active is very important to him. Being with his family and people who know him well is very important. A sense of adventure and trying new things. So important to Sean. And if you look over on the upper right, That's a picture of Sean on a roller coaster at Disney World that I was so shocked that he enjoyed. It was fast and crazy. Um, but he did. And here he is surfing and also trying a bike trailer where my husband is riding and Sean's being pulled along behind. These are all new experiences. Learning new things in general, especially hands-on, very important to him. Um, in scout camp, he learned how to carve, he learned how to make fingerprints, he learned lots of things about being in nature, which is also important to him. Live music, very, very important, but it needs to be the songs that he wants. Driving his power chair. And also, this surprised me. That's Sean's wallet down on the bottom. And he wants to find a job, but he wants to earn money. And I really, I'm just going to tell you this. This is a challenge for me. And so I'm working on this now. Now, Sean's 22, and we have a lot of things in place and his plan for his life. And we're working towards finding a job that will work for him. And you can do the same thing. All the pieces do not have to be in place at the beginning. As a matter of fact, they probably won't be. Um, Things I don't want, just as important for Sean. He does not like being bored. He does not like when he can't communicate. He does not like being passive, not having a choice in his day. So anything he does needs to have a schedule, and it needs to be a schedule that Sean helped to pick. These are things I can share, and I have actually shared this board when Sean was in school. I shared his Good Life board with his IEP team, and now that he is at a day program part-time, I shared with the staff there so that they could really get a picture of what he's like and what he loves. Sean really dislikes when we're arguing as a family and when there's tension in the house. And I don't really like that either. So I can certainly understand. Before we move on, I wanted to share that I also made a Good Life poster for myself. And I will share that I had to think really hard about what's important to me because I know that as moms and dads who are caring for someone, it's easy to forget what's important to you. And it was very helpful for me to remember that I like going on walks by myself. I like taking the dog for a walk. I like getting up early and having some time in the morning. But even writing those things down helped me to be able to do them more. So this tool is for everyone. It's a universal tool. My younger son, Sam, made one. My husband made one. And each New Year's, we review them. And there's a great question actually here. I can actually address this right now, if that's okay. Someone said, what if your child doesn't have strong interest? You know, that is a great question. Sometimes our children have what I would call like limited life experience. They haven't been out there to try a lot of things and they may not know what they like and what they don't like. So if it's a situation where you can get your child out to try new things, you will certainly learn more about them, you know, what they like, what they don't like. Some of the things that we have tried as a family did not work very well, and some of them were a big hit. So I learned from those things. Like, for example, Sean likes to go to concerts, but he doesn't like really loud ones. Loud places, tight places bother him. But some of what you can do is to expose your child to more as best you can. And you can also talk about the things they don't like because that's just as important. If there are things that bother them, because that will help them be successful in what they're doing. That's a great question, but a lot of it's life experience. And we'll go on to the next slide. I have one more tool, and I'm going to give you guys a copy of this tool. It looks confusing. I'm just going to explain it. This tool is called the Integrated Support Star, and it is a great planning tool to help you explore all the areas of support that are available to your young person. So in this instance, Sean, since we're talking about him right now, would be the person at the center of the star. And I might call this star Sean's adult life. And then I go around the star and think about what kinds of things are available to Sean. The first one is personal strengths and assets. That's right on the top. What strengths and assets does Sean have that will help him lead a successful adult life? And the next slide, I'm going to talk about what those things are. What relationships are in Sean's life? Sean's very close with his grandmother and his aunt Stephanie, and he's also very close with his music therapist. But what relationships are important to him that I need to continue? Um, Eligibility specific. Those are things from your DDD budget. Those are the um, supports and services that are paid for from your budget that are available to you, and they are important. But the reason this tool is so good is because it reminds you of all the other areas of your child's life where they can have a successful life by incorporating those things. Um, community-based supports. Um, those are things in your community that could also give your child support. And I'll just give an example. Actually, I spoke with my friend Tara, whose son Patrick was they're a church going family, and his first job was in his church, and it was to move the parking cones in the parking lot so that people could park, for church services. And that was not a job that was found by an agency. That was a job that was found by a personal contact. And so your community-based supports make a difference. You may have a neighbor. We have a neighbor, for example, when Sean's out riding his bike, they always stop and talk with us. And she has suggestions for things that Sean could do for work. And also, sometimes people own a business where they might be able to give your child an opportunity. So community-based supports can be very, very important. Scouting is a community-based support for my son, Sean. It allowed him to make friends, to do volunteer work with our help. And then the last thing is technology. Technology are the things that we use that help us be successful in life. Technology includes things like our iPhone or our iPads that we all use, our computers, this Zoom that we're doing right now. These all make things possible. What technology does Sean have available to him? Sean has a communication device, and that allows him to be able to use his eyes to communicate. He is I'm going to mention one thing about the communication device because this is important. Sean has been using a communication device since 2010. That's 15 years. He is still learning. And his communication is on a more fundamental level, and it's improving slowly all the time. I mention that because sometimes it seems that if you try something new that it's not working or it's really difficult, but sometimes things take time. So I would mention if you're trying something new, especially with someone who might be nervous about trying something new or get frustrated, give them time. It's kind of the same way that we tell people when they have a baby that's trying new food, let them try it 10 times. Like the first time they spit it out, that doesn't mean they don't like it. Let them try it again to have the experience. So this tool, which I'm also sharing with you and can be used for you, it could be used for anyone. That middle of that star could be our next house. And we could talk about the relationships that will help us find our next house, the community-based supports that might help us, the technology that might help us. And it's a brainstorming tool, and you can use it for anything. It's very good for planning for people who have disabilities. And I'll go on to the next slide to talk about this just a little bit more. This will be easier to read on the slides, which will be shared, but I wanted to highlight a couple of things. This was Sean's adult life that I put together as I was thinking about his next steps as he graduated from his 18 to 21-year-old program. A couple of things. Sean really enjoys and benefits from exercise. So I utilized my support coordinator and other resources to find exercise opportunities for him. So he is now swimming at Lifetown, which we'll talk about. Lifetown is a wonderful center that supports people with disabilities. And he also uses his bike, which we got help purchasing from an organization, which will be in the last slide. And I just found an organization called Gym Guys. GUIZ, Gym Guys, and they provide personal training in your home for typical, people without a disability and people with a disability. So they're coming on Friday to do an assessment of Sean. So the reason I'm pointing this out is because I know that Sean enjoys and benefits from exercise. It gives me a place to look. so that I can look for supports that are going to be meaningful for him. Um, in the relationship area, we're working to get more time with John, who is Sean's self-directed employee right now, and also looking for new people, looking in the community. So, for example, we reached out to the West Essex Rescue Squad. There are a lot of young EMTs, people who are comfortable around medical situations and emergencies and things like that. They're not a doctor or a nurse, but they are comfortable enough to stay calm and dial 911. And they're Sean's age. That's who he wants to be with. He doesn't want to be with, you know, no offense, but like an older nurse, like somebody my age. He wants to be with someone who's a peer. So um, I started thinking about what we could do to get more time with John, or also to find more people who Sean could have a kinship with. Um, Couple of other things. Sean is attending a day program part-time, and we're using his days off to work on his other goals. I mention this because in many instances, you can have a choice if you choose a day program to go part-time so that you can do other things on the other days, and those things can expand. So these are not all or nothing programs and supports. You can make them work for you. Um, Community-based, I realized reading what I had written about Sean that he would probably really enjoy joining a wheelchair racing team or a hiking group. And that could be something that would get him out into the world doing things that he enjoys, which also helps us. I also enjoy hiking and being out. So there are a lot of benefits to that. Lastly, with technology, yes, Sean has a Toby. I started thinking about what else can he do with his Toby? Well, he can use his Toby to send text messages, which we have now set up. He can use his Toby to control his environment, like turn his radio off and on, turn lights off and on, turn the television off and on, and it gives him more control of his life. That's just what I learned because I started thinking about it. There's probably a lot more. There's probably much more. So this tool can help you think a little more deeply. And so we're going to go on to the next slide. And I know, and I'm so sorry, I know that someone asked a question. I'm going to save it to the end if that's okay. I definitely want to answer everyone's questions. If your child, if young adult, I should say, is still in school, you can utilize the IEP process to help plan for adult life. There's a transition section in every IEP. And transition begins in New Jersey at the age of 14. And you can start thinking about future education, employment, or other areas that you might want to consider and plan for. Many private schools, like the schools that our young adults attend, offer 18 to 21-year-old programs that support transition to adult life. CTC Academy was my son Sean's school, and the STEP program gave him vocational experience, community-based experience. He made a resume. He identified his skills. There's a lot that your school can do if your son or daughter is still school age, and you can work with them to help you prepare. I have links here. The New Jersey Transition Toolkit is a great resource that talks about the process of transition and the steps and what you can do. So I have links here that you can use to read more about each of these processes. Also, SPAN Parent Advocacy Network is a great source of information about transition. So using the IEP process can be a big help. And also utilizing the time that your son or daughter is in school can be a big help to identify some ideas. I can go on to the next slide, please. Another area of help and support is the Division of Vocational and Rehabilitative Services, also known as DVRS. DVRS can offer skills assessments. They can help you find a job. They can offer job coaching. My son Sean signed up for DVRS and was able to get a great assessment of his skills and strengths, because I'm going to tell you, everyone has skills and strengths. Everyone has interests. If someone has a substantial disability, they still have interests and strengths, and they're even more important, honestly, because those are things that can be their ticket to participating in life in a bigger way. Pre-ETS stands for Pre-Employment Training Services. I just did see a note come up, and yes, those slides will be available after the presentation. I'm hoping you'll use them and utilize them to help your own planning. Pre-ETS is a part of the Division of Vocational Rehabilitative Services, and it serves young people under the age of 21. It can teach job readiness skills. It can provide internships. My own son, Sam, had a paid internship at REI, which I had mentioned before, and he had a job coach who came alongside and helped him to be successful. And it was a great experience. It was an inclusive experience. It was a regular store, and Sam had the supports he needed, which is what we had wanted for him and what he wanted. If your young person is over 21, you can apply for DVRS at your county office if you're not already affiliated with them because of your school. So Sam's school reached out to DVRS and helped us get signed up, and then they started talking with me, and then we started planning. But you can also access DVRS services through your county DVRS office. So there's a lot of options. This is a great resource and can help if your son or daughter is interested in working. It can help identify the supports they need and to help them be successful at a job. So we'll go to the next slide. So guardianship and supported decision-making, this is another step on the way to the world of adult life. I'll just tell you a little bit about what we did, if that's okay. My son Sean has a limited guardianship, so he retained some of his rights, including the right to vote. This is important because he is very civic-minded. He watches the news. We read magazines together and talk about, political issues in our house. You can retain rights. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation. For some people, that's just the right thing to do. A standard guardianship is fine, but there are many options, and you can talk about those things with your attorney. We worked with Guston and Guston. I want to share everything I can with you about what we've done because I think it's important to be able to know if somebody did a good job, and they did do a good job. During the time that we were applying for guardianship, it was during COVID, and so it was all done on Zoom, which I think was really merciful because I did not really want to go into a courtroom and do all of this stuff. I think still to this day, Zoom hearings are occurring, which is much easier for everyone. Sam does not have a guardian. Sam has a supported decision-making arrangement. And what that means is that he is still the decision maker for his life, but he has a circle of people to talk with about decisions and what he wants to do. And he actually listens and makes good decisions for the most part. He's also 19. Every once in a while, he doesn't make such a great decision, but I will tell you this, people learn when they don't make a great decision for the next time. So there's a lot you can do. Most, if not all, of our young adults are going to need some support and help. And there's a lot of options, guardianship, supported decision-making, and I have links here for both of them. And I want to mention this also, this is very important. Guardianship does not have to mean that your young adult is not involved in their decisions. Every decision that affects Sean, if he needs to have an elective surgery, if we're looking at applying to, we applied actually to a college program, which I'll talk about later. I ask him if he wants to do it. If he doesn't want to do it, we're not going to do that. Sometimes I can talk with him and bring up some positives, and he may change his mind. But the fact that he has a guardianship does not mean he's not participating in his life. We explain things in plain language, and you can do that too. And that actually allows your young adult to learn how to make decisions, because people learn how to make decisions by making decisions. That's how we all learn. You don't learn it by reading about it. You learn it by doing it and then seeing if things go well or if they don't. So there's information here about guardianship, and I wanted to touch on it. And it's an important step. when someone turns 18, they are legally an adult. And so if you need to put steps in place to protect your young adult, that's the time to do it. But it can be a lot of different kinds of steps and supports. And we can go on to the next slide. So SSI. SSI is supplemental security income. And SSI is a monthly benefit that is paid by the federal government to adults with disabilities. And it's for people who have limited income and work experience. And you also cannot have more than $2,000 in assets. So you just need to make sure that you don't have more than $2,000 in assets in your young adult's name. And when someone turns 18, they can apply for Social Security supplemental SSI. And you should wait until your child is 18, because if you do it like I did and you apply when they're 17, your family's resources count too, and you'll be denied, and then you'll have to do it again. Just wait until they're 18 in a day so that you don't have an extra step of your family's income being included. There's two links here. If you are not familiar with SSI, there's a link here from the Social Security Administration website about how to apply. And there's also a starter kit that tells you what kinds of information they're going to need. Currently, it's taking about 7 to 8 months to complete this process. And if your adult child is approved, they will receive a monthly payment that goes to a checking account that a parent also is part of, so that you can help them to handle their money. The maximum monthly payment at this time is $967 a month. I don't mind to share with you that Sean is receiving $688.98. Now, if you do your math, you will see that pretty shortly, if somebody is receiving $688 a month, in about 3 months, they're going to be over $2,000. You need to spend this money. And what I do is I charge Sean rent. And I charge Sean $600 a month in rent, and he writes a check from his account to us. And then between you and me, I save that money for him. It's just not in his account, but it's his, I don't know if that's technically allowed, but I save it for him. It'll be for the future, for his future needs, because it's out of his name now. Many people would use that money to cover their household expenses that are related to having a person with a disability. But you just have to be sure that you're spending the money on something related to your son or daughter so that you don't go over the $2,000. Last month, Sean had a new manual wheelchair approved, and the tie down part of the chair wasn't covered by insurance. So his checking account paid for that part. It was $300. You'll have no trouble finding things to spend the money on. But Social Security is very important for another reason, and we'll go to the next slide, because when you are approved for Social Security, you also receive Medicaid. Your child receives Medicaid. Medicaid is so important. Medicaid covers, of course, medical care and prescriptions. It's medical insurance. It also covers equipment and supplies. It can cover private duty nursing if your son or daughter needs that. It can cover the cost of your day program. It can cover residential supports like group homes and more, so much more. Medicaid is a critically important benefit for our young adults so that they can live their life and have the things that they need. Because without these supports, these would be very expensive and for many people unaffordable. If you are not going to apply for SSI, or for some reason your child is not approved, you can also apply for Medicaid through the New Jersey Care Aged, Blind, and Disabled program. And I have a link here. So that's another way to receive Medicaid. You want and need Medicaid for sure. And it covers many, many things. We'll go on to the next slide. How's everybody doing? This is a ton of information. Are you guys okay? Everybody all right? I hope. Let's keep going. We have 6, 7, 8, and 9, and I want to just go over these very briefly. Feel free. My hope is that you will refer back to this presentation for the information, and you can use it at your convenience when you have time to look into something, click on a link. I hope you will. New Jersey DDD is the Division of Developmental Disabilities. This is the bedrock of support for our young adults. DDD provides services to 25,000 individuals in New Jersey, and there are two waivers, Medicaid waivers, the Community Care Program and the Supports Program. What does that mean? What does waiver mean? Waiver means that ordinarily this person would not qualify for Medicaid because of their income or because of other factors, but because they have a disability, there's a waiver in place. It waives the requirements so that they can receive DDD. The first, just a quick story. The first waiver in the country was the Katie Beckett waiver, which was back in the 80s. And it was, of course, advocated for and worked for by a mom, because moms and dads do everything. They're the ones who care the most and push the most. But Katie Beckett was a young child who had significant medical needs, and she was living in the hospital because she needed nursing and she could not go home because nursing was considered a hospital service and it was not paid for in someone's home. So Katie Beckett's mom worked with the federal government to make waiver programs so that supports that are ordinarily just available in a hospital or just available in what's called an institutional setting would be available at home. And that made community life possible for people with disabilities. It made it possible for people to care for their children at home. And that was the first waiver. Every state has a waiver now. So the community care waiver includes a budget for employment, day rehabilitation, or both, individual family supports, and a residential support like a group home. It's the most generous budget, and it's typically for people who need a lot of support or need to move out of their home because their parents can't care for them anymore, for example. The supports waiver includes a budget for employment and day rehabilitation and also individual family support. So it's the same, except that there's not a residential support included. You apply for DDD when you can apply when your young adult is 18 and the services begin at 21. If your son or daughter was accepted onto Perform Care, the children's system of care, you can use the short application, which is linked here. It's really not a lot. And then if you were not receiving services through Perform Care, the full application is required. And there's also an email here for questions. So DDD is super important. I'm going to spend just a little time on the next slide. It's a complicated slide, but I just want to make one point from it, actually. So after your young adult is approved onto DDD services, they will take an assessment, which is called the New Jersey CAT. That stands for the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool. And it's a very detailed survey that aims to determine the amount of support that your young person would need if you weren't there. If they were just, the way I've heard it described is, if you walked out of your house and shut the door and did not come back for several days, what would need to be in your house for your young adult to be able to do well, to eat, to do the things they need to do? And depending on the level of need, the NJCAT quantifies that and assigns each person a tier. An A tier is the most modest budget because the supports are not extensive. An E tier, as you can see, if you go up through the numbers, is much bigger. And also there's something called an acuity. So for many of our sons and daughters, they may have medical issues or behavioral challenges, and they would receive an acuity, which means that their budget is bigger. And this is New Jersey's pretty good attempt to try to determine how much budget money each person needs. So I will tell you, my own son is a DA, and so he has, at this point, $66,000 a year for a day program or employment supports, or both, a combination. He has $22,000 in individual and family supports, which pays for things like leisure activities, fun in the community, lots of other kinds of things. And this budget can be managed to provide a lot for your child. I wanted to mention one other thing that's important. In New Jersey, when someone is approved on DDD, they generally become eligible for the supports program and they receive a budget immediately. In many other states, there's a wait list to get any kind of services. In some states, it's 5 or 10 years. And so although our system isn't perfect, it's really good. So I wanted to mention that this is a good place to live and there's a lot available. So we'll go on to the next slide. I'm being cognizant of time. We have about 15 minutes. Is everybody still okay? You guys all right? Let's keep going. Okay. This is a very cursory overview. One of the other things you're going to need to do, and you don't have to do it all at once, and you don't have to do it at 18, but you're going to need to transition to adult medical providers. And it's very hard to let go of your pediatric specialists who you've known your whole life and they've known your child, their whole life. But adult issues are different. Our children, as they get older, will have the same issues that other adults do. They may have high blood pressure, they may have diabetes, they may have arthritis, they may have other kinds of adult conditions, and adult providers are in a great position to help them. Couple of points. Some practitioners will allow you to remain in their practice. Sean, for example, his neurologists are continuing to follow him, even though he's 22 now. Also, his dentist is still seeing him. Dental care is hard to find in the adult world. We also found a great GI doctor, which I'll mention his name, Dr. Coburn at Gange and Hackensack. If your son or daughter has GI issues, he's an adult doctor. I loved him. He took time to talk with Sean. He asked Sean questions. He didn't just ask me questions. Great doctor. Ask your friends for recommendations and start with one at a time for this. Another tip, Sean transitioned to the Developmental Disability Center in Cedar Knolls. They also have an office in Union for his primary care, and he's being followed by a nurse practitioner, Catherine Thompson, instead of his pediatrician now. She's an adult provider. This is the office exam room. The office rooms are big. They have a lift. They have an exam table that allows Sean to get out of his chair, and they're set up to be able to provide the care he needs. So I wanted to mention that for others of you that may be looking for someone. It's about a 35-minute drive for us, but it's worth it. So just something to keep in mind, transitioning to adult medical providers. I have 2 more points to cover. If you could go on to the next one. Support coordination. Once your son or daughter has DDD services, you will get to pick a support coordinator. A support coordinator is the person who listens to your goals and needs, identifies supports that you can utilize that are funded by your DDD budget, and they also coordinate the payments for your young adult services and supports. They are your intermediary and ticket to services. New Jersey has a total of 130 support coordination agencies. And ask your friends about their experiences. You need a great support coordinator. You do not want an okay one, and you certainly don't want a not good one. You can also change support coordination agencies if you're not satisfied with them. Sean's on his 3rd agency now because we didn't find the right fit, but now we're actually working with Breaking Barriers. Natalie DeLeon, who I love and is proactive and gets right back to me, all the things I'm looking for. She has good ideas and she knows how to do things. Other people that I know who are happy with their support coordination agency, Infinity Today is a great organization. There's a link here to their website, and also Spectrum Care Management. Claudia Antoci is the person who my friend is working with. I mention this because you're working with an agency but you're really working with a person. You want to get the right person. Some support coordination agencies have a big staff, and some of them are good and some of them are not so good. So try to ask for the person who your friend recommends. You can ask for these people. They're good. But support coordinators are very important. They'll come visit you, they keep up with things, and they do their best for your young adult to be leading the life that they want. And we'll go on to the next slide. Step 9, building your adult's plan. We're gonna move through this quickly because there's a lot of information you can click on. With your support coordinator, you and your young adult will develop an ISP. This replaces the IEP. The ISP stands for Individual Service Plan. Of course, an IEP stands for Individual Education Plan, and it includes lots of information, very much like an IEP does, about your young adult's medical history, their needs, all the written details about their supports, their activities, the resources they're using. Sean's is about a 32-page plan. Not unlike an IEP, they're also a thick document with lots of information. Some areas that you can consider: day programs, full-time or part-time. Your young adult could go to college. There is a program called Think College, which allows individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities to participate in college towards a certificate program in many instances and to have a college experience. So I wouldn't necessarily discount it. It could be a possibility. Employment and training, also important. We talked a bit about it before when we were talking about DVRS. And then leisure and recreation. So we have about 10 minutes. I'm going to go through each of these and talk about them. So the next slide is about day programs. A high quality program can help meet your young adults' needs. There's some really good ones out there. Part-time status, if the day program allows it, could allow you more time to explore and develop other interests and goals. And you want to visit the programs to determine if they can meet your young adults' needs. You want to ask questions about things like transportation. Do they provide it to your home? Most have what's called a catchment area where they'll come get you if you're within a certain mile radius. They're all different. Do they have nursing staff if you in fact need nursing staff? Do they allow private duty nursing if your young adult needs that? Many of CTC graduates needed private duty nursing, and I imagine many of us on the call, your child may have private duty nursing also. Some day programs allow a private duty nurse to accompany someone, and others are less welcoming, we'll say. The ratio of staff to participants, is it adequate to meet your young adult's needs? Do they offer therapy? Do they offer time in the community? And does the program feel right to you and your young adult? Like, does it feel like a place you want to be? I have a chart on the next 2 pages, just with information about day programs. I love to learn about this area. So if somebody's having an open house, I'm going to go. I'm going to go check out the day program. These are all the Northern New Jersey day programs that I have visited. I just have a little information here, the name of the program, where it's located, their website. I visited all of these. The thing that's important here is first of all of these are quality programs. And Jetta, by the way, has just done a really nice revamp of their program when I was at the open house. They do have space availability for new clients also. I don't know anyone who's there right now, but the program looks great. The other programs here are New Concepts for Living, which is in Paramus. I know people there and they're very happy. So I wanted to share what I can. The next slide, if you don't mind. Red Ribbon Academy in Wayne and Hillsborough. All the websites are here. I've been there and I know people there and they're happy. Second Home in Totowa, which is the program that my son Sean is attending part-time. Of course, I visited and I do know someone there and he's quite happy. It was an adjustment leaving CTC, which is just an outstanding school. And but Sean is doing very well now, but he needed to make an adjustment. I mentioned that because sometimes at the beginning of adult life, there's an adjustment for everybody and things can improve. And you also want to assess if you need to make changes. Spectrum for Living. I visited there. They have a location in Teaneck and one in Ringwood. I don't know anyone who's there currently, but it does look like a quality program. And then there's Universal Institute in Livingston. Universal Institute um, is one of the larger programs. They offer a lot of therapy. They have what they call a structured day program. I have visited there, and I know two people there who are happy. So I wanted to share this so you can use this information to do your own exploring. Um, we'll go on to the next slide. Briefly about Think College. Think College is a group of college programs for individuals who have intellectual or developmental disabilities. They are non-degree programs that allow young adults to continue their education if that's one of their goals, that they really enjoy learning, and to have a college experience. You do not have to meet requirements for a degree program. You do not have to apply to the college. Um, it's a separate track. Students usually earn a certificate. There are 13 programs in New Jersey. Think College Programs. Montclair State University has the closest one to us, which is called the Certificate in General Education Studies. Sean applied there and was not accepted, but we may apply again this year because he's made some nice progress in some academic areas. So there's also a video about Think College. If you've never thought about it or think that's just not for my son or daughter, take a look at the video. It's good to consider everything. And the next slide, please. Leisure and recreation. Your son or daughter's DDD budget includes money for things like music therapy, cooking classes, swimming classes, and they are really good programs. These are just some pictures of my son Sean at his music therapy, which he adores. The lower right picture is him swimming at Lifetown with his dad. Lifetown offers a lot of really great activities, cooking, bowling. They have a very cool town center where you can go and visit. If you haven't been there, it's worth a trip, and they do tours. Um, Also, don't forget about, though, as we were talking when we talked about the support star, about things that are not paid for from your budget. MAWA Access for All is a great example. These are free community activities. They are not part of your budget. This picture was a bowling event that was on Sunday. Sean had a great time. There's some of his other friends from CTC and then more friends in the back, but it was a full house and a lot of fun. And then don't forget also about accessible organizations for the general public. We are really big proponents of places like the Liberty Science Center, the Bronx Zoo, the New York Botanical Garden. Here's the picture I was talking about before of Sean at the giraffe encounter. It's a little deceiving here, but the giraffe, of course, is like 20 feet tall, and we're up on a platform. They had a lift, and we got to feed this giraffe. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life and Sean's life, all of our lives. I mention that because when you're in the process of your child having new experiences, guess what? You get to have new experiences too. And your family's happiness and growth is also important. So there's a lot to think about. We may have one more slide. Um, some final thoughts. I would begin early to give yourself time to learn. It's also never too late. If your child's 20, it's not too late. Just get started. There's a phrase I love, which is to begin, begin. Just get started. Go to a webinar. You just did tonight, didn't you? Everybody just did. Get started learning. Talk to someone who has an adult child and ask them what they're doing. Always begin with your young adults' goals, strengths, and needs. Um, and then you can identify the support needs that are important for your young adult, and also natural supports in your community and help from their budget too. Your support coordinator can be a huge help. I would encourage you to revisit your child's plan at least once a year. We do this on New Year's Eve because we're boring, but we stay home and make a little dinner and think about the last year and what our goals are for the next year. All four of us, it's important so that your life can be moving in the direction that you want. And then a final thought, join or form a group for brainstorming and support. And I love this proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I would encourage you to meet up with group, make a group and go together. It can help so much. And I have just one more bonus slide on the end, if you don't mind. I'm happy to take questions now. And then if you don't mind just flipping through, I wanted to share this one. Um, the last one, I hope it's there. There it is. This is just a little appendix for you. Finding support and low cost funding support, pardon me, and low cost options for equipment. If you haven't been to Goodwill Home Medical and you have a child who uses medical equipment, you should go. It's down in Belmar. This gigantic room is full of beach chairs, wheelchairs, jogging chairs, other all kinds of equipment. Um, I got a bath chair for my son there for $200. That's a $6,000 bath chair. I still had the plastic on it because, sometimes people get something and it doesn't work for them. So sometimes you don't want to go through insurance or you can't. Other organizations, Patrick's Pals paid for Sean's bike. And they fund equipment that's not covered by insurance. Insurance won't cover a bike because it's not considered medically necessary, but I consider it necessary. So that's a great organization. They have a very simple application process. The McClendon Family Foundation also funds bikes for children and young adults. Very simple application process. Julia's Butterfly Foundation funds equipment and other needs for chronically ill children. And there are more, but think beyond your budget. Think about other people, your community, other organizations that can help you. It will help you be more successful, and you can share that information with others and help them be more successful. I thank you so much for your time. I want to take some questions, and I really appreciate your attention.
So the first question we had in the chat was, would the financial support from SSI and or DDD go away or decrease if Sean begins working and earning income? If so, are there any workarounds?
That is such a great question. So the SSI benefit can be reduced if someone is earning money, but it will not, now that New Jersey has a program called Workability, so you will not lose your SSI and you will not lose your Medicaid, because there was a little trap for people that if they started working and made too much money, if they lost their SSI, they would lose their Medicaid, which is critically important. DDD budget is not affected by somebody working. You can volunteer also if that is a concern. So your DDD budget covers employment supports and will help you get a job, as a matter of fact. So it does not affect your DDD budget. No. Thank you. That's a great question. And so to answer the second part, Medicaid workability is a workaround to make sure that people preserve their Medicaid. And if someone's able to work, the amount of money that they're getting from Social Security it's actually a fairly small amount considering what someone could earn. And so if their SSI amount drops, they're still going to be ahead. And there are, and I forgot what they're called, there are people called benefits counselors, and I can send information to you, Stephanie, that help people if they want to work to make sure that they don't fall into a trap of losing benefits. But there are people that's their whole job. And so and it's important. Thank you.
Okay. And then the next question, have you found an accountant that is familiar with tax law that pertains to the disabled and their family?
That is a great question. I have to say I haven't. And that that's important. That would be a great question to ask friends, and also if at your school, if it may be a great question to ask your social worker. So yes. I wish I knew that question. Our own tax attorney, because we have two small businesses, it's more than I can figure out myself. And so he does allow me to, I make a spreadsheet of our medical expenses. He deducts those things. So those kind of basic things accountants would know about. Everyone can deduct their medical expenses. So you have to keep records for those kind of things. But specific ones, I don't have a person to recommend.
That's it for questions.
Oh, wow. Well, I cannot.
Jennifer, can I jump in for 1 second?
Yeah.
I just wanted to also, because you gave us such wonderful resources, There's also another resource, especially for medical equipment, because I know they're so expensive, called Pluckman Medical Equipment Ministry. And they actually work with families, again, to get medical equipment for free, like hospital beds, scooters, motorized chairs, walkers, commodes, lifts, all kinds of things. So that's another resource. It's called Pluckman, Pluckemin, Medical Equipment Ministry. They're amazing.
That is great. You know what? I can add that onto my slide if you don't mind. And then
Sure.
before you share them, I'll just add them on as soon as we finish the call. And as you were saying that, I also thought about an organization called Resource Recycler, which I can also put on there, which is a Facebook group. And I got a floor sitter for Sean from there. Those what are they called? They have such a cute name. Now I can't think of it. Anybody jump in if you think of it. But a piece of equipment for free. And people, when their child outgrows it or they're not using it, you can just go pick it up. I mean, it's so nice to help people. You know, it's nice
Mhm.
to be helped. It's so nice to help people. We do that with all of our equipment. When Sean outgrew his bike, we gave it to somebody else. You know,
Right.
it is, yes. Um, I'm going to add Pluckerman Medical onto my slide, and then I'll send them back to you, Stephanie, actually, and so you have them.
Okay, Jennifer, another question came in. If I have DDD already, do I have to apply again at 18? He is turning 14 now.
Oh, so you're there, you're part of a small and lucky group. So that was the case for my son Sean also. He had DDD prior to 21. It's an unusual situation. You do not have to apply again, actually, but you will likely do every 3 years. You're supposed to redo your NJ-CAT because people's needs change. So you will likely need to take your NJ-CAT, and you'll also be you have, I don't know if you have a support coordinator already, you probably do, but you'll just continue on. Um, there's a small group of people who receive DDD benefits before they're 21, and Sean was one of them because we applied before there was a children's system of care. And so I was very lucky to get a long period of training wheels, I call it, like learning how to use these budgets. And we didn't use it for much because Sean was in school, but we did use it for some things. We put a ceiling lift in our house so that Sean could get to the bathroom, like things like that. So, so no, you don't have to reapply, but you will likely need to redo your NJ-CAT. And you will likely need to start planning differently because when you turn 21, your child won't be in school any longer and will need adult supports. That's a great question.
Okay. Oh, one more. If if a family hasn't started transition discussions and the child is in 12th grade now, what steps would you recommend taking first?
That's a great question. I would definitely reach out to your child study team and let them know that you need to have a meeting about transition. Um, there may be some information in your young adults IEP already, but definitely ask that it is a legal requirement in an IEP to have discussions about transition. And if it hasn't been happening before, I would reach out tomorrow and ask for that because it can be a huge help. There are certain supports like pre-ETS that you can get when your child is still in school. So just start now. If you haven't done it yet, just start now.
I don't
Okay.
want to interrupt anyone else who wants to ask a question, but I just want to share with everybody that I had the privilege of being on Jennifer's team when Sean was 2 years old and was one of those lucky people who got to see Jennifer shine in helping her son transition from early intervention into the school based services. And seeing you now, Jennifer, advocating for your family and sharing all of this information and being a champion for transition is just tremendous. And I truly appreciate how strong you are and how positive you are and how you have helped all the families on this call and many, many, many families outside of this meeting tonight as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate that. And I will be forever grateful for your help. you were one of the early people who believed in Sean, and that really matters. When someone's small and the future is uncertain, you need people on your team who really believe in your child. So thank you for all you did too. You made a huge difference in getting him started with communicating. A child being able to communicate, a young adult being able to communicate in the way that they can is so critically important. That's how we know what's important to them and what they like and what they don't like. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I don't see any more questions coming in. Everyone's saying thank you. Thank you again, Jennifer. And
Thank
before
you.
everyone gets off the call, just a reminder, there will be an email that goes out that has the slides and Jennifer's PDF, and any other information in there that could be helpful. The recordings will be on the Alliance website and the NJASEP's website. I will put the links in there to where you can find those recordings as well. And we do have a few upcoming webinars. If you want to save the date, I will share my screen so you guys can see them. If you want to jot these dates down, please go ahead and do so. I will leave this screen up for a few minutes. If not, please enjoy your night. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. You. Stephanie and Rachel, thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're
Have a
very
good day.
welcome. You've made
Thank
yourself
you.
very accessible to us, and I'm sure everyone on this call, plus Stephanie and I, are very appreciative of that.
Thank you. I'm delighted to do it. It really, it takes a lot of time investment to learn about adult life, and I'm so happy to be able to share what I've learned. I hope it will save someone else some time and effort. So thank you. I will update my slides tonight, and then Stephanie, I'll just email you when the link is updated, and then so I do want to add on the Pluckerman Medical too. So
Okay,
thank you.
perfect.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Have a
night.
good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right, that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.